Hello and welcome to Run Mama Run. Today we are here with Skylar Macedo.
Hello.
I so badly want to keep calling you Skylar.
I was like, I was like, wait.
This is episode 2 of Run Mama Run, and I wanted to introduce you to each of the girls separately because I noticed that after we completed that last part 1 and part 2 interview that it was a little confusing because even when I was listening I thought, oh my goodness, we all sound very similar.
You really do.
It's kind of scary.
I was thinking about that. I was like, how are they going to know who's who? I was like,
Right.
oh no.
Right, so I came up with some questions and you were so gracious to say, yeah, I'll be there at 6, let's do this.
And then got here at 6:20.
That's all right.
Chick-fil-A was calling.
Oh, you might want to add that into, the fact that you are a Chick-fil-A lover.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yes, isn't every,
It's my C part. It's Christ, Cats, Coffee, Chick-fil-A. Poor Nick. He needs like a C in his name.
Now, who's Nick?
Nick's my amazing husband.
Oh,
So, yeah.
newlyweds.
Yeah, almost a year. So next month.
That's right.
So June 11th, we'll be here.
Yeah, I appreciate that 11th in there because they got married on the 11th. My other daughter got married on the 11th, and Clay and I got married on the 11th.
The
We just
lucky
have
charm.
one rebellious daughter that chose the 10th, but whatever, it's okay. We still love her.
That's here.
That's no, Savannah. Oh, Savannah. Oops, we didn't want to say her name, but we did. So, Skylar, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you fit in, or I shouldn't say fit in, but where are you in the fam?
So, out of all 10 of the kids, third oldest, and so, yeah.
You're the third oldest.
Yeah.
And how would you what would you consider yourself? Because we talked earlier about what you wanted to be when you grew up,
Right.
and it was really sweet. Kind of, we just touched a little bit on it, but it wasn't just a really sweet little thing. It was a really long time, right?
Yeah. Well, it was really crazy because after we had finished filming and doing that other podcast, I had went home and told Nick just about how we had talked about me wanting to be a designer. And so Nick and me, my husband is really into fashion, which is really awesome. And he's been selling clothes online and all this stuff. But he had talked to me also about how he's like, I feel like when you're into fashion, he's like, I don't know. He's like, I'm not trying to say this about you, Skylar. He's like, but a big reason too why you might have been into fashion is to stick out. He goes, and you really want to make something unique. He's like, I even tell sometimes, clearly not with my outfit today, but with your outfits, I know I'm not old, but with your outfits, it's very much you're wanting to be set apart. And he goes, maybe that's why you wanted to be put into fashion design. It's because you wanted to be set apart. And
Do you think it's because you're from such a large family, or do you think that's just part of your personality that God gave you?
I think it's part of my personality. I think I've been told that it's because I'm in a big family.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even just in the world, I'm just very I just want to be set apart.
Yeah.
You say you're gonna go right, I'm gonna go left.
Oh, yeah.
Very much like that.
Yeah,
So,
I'm a lot like that too. When
Yeah.
things get really popular, I don't want anything to do with them.
No, and it gotta be the coolest thing, brushing your hair. Oh, no, I'm not gonna do that.
I am so not doing that.
Honestly.
What? Wash my hair? Not on your life.
So bad. Oh.
That's funny though, but I think you probably inherited a little bit of that from me because and I don't want to say I'm a rebel because obviously I like fashionable clothing and I like to be a little trendy, but there are certain things that once they get huge and it may just be if someone I really respect does something, I want to do it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We could probably do 15 shows on that, huh?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm gonna grab I have a little grabby over here because I had to put our questions or our outline on an iPad because I'm getting old and I'm blind. So how would you, looking back, how would you describe yourself growing up? As a child, I mean, you literally were my wild child. You were so strong-willed, and I don't want to tell you how you viewed yourself, but that's just, kind of to start with.
Well, I feel like I was viewed as the wild child,
Mm-hmm.
but I think mentally, in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
I think I really viewed because I was thinking about I felt very free as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just very, like, I knew that if I focused too hard, or if I sat down for a little bit, it was like I really had to, like, think about things, and I didn't like that, like, in a weird way. I like things like running around and, like, kind of being crazy, and I think it's because, like, when I was doing that, I felt very free as a kid. And so, and it was very much like, I felt like that's when, even as a kid, I remember, like, that's when I felt like even, like, the Lord.
Right.
I think the most as a kid was just when I was able to be kind of a crackhead. Like
Okay, so basically when you were riding your big wheel in the front yard with your knee-high patent leather boots on, singing "Let's Go Rock and Roll Jesus."
Right, include that.
So, because when I look at you as a child, you're very, I mean, you're not much different.
No, I was just gonna say that.
No, you're really not. I see, if I were to see a video of you and you weren't my child and see you now, I would know it was you.
Yeah.
Not only do you look identical, but you truly are this kindred, you know, this young spirit. And I hope you're always like that. I hope when you're like an old lady that you're still the life of the party, because you really are.
Well, and thankfully I feel like I married a man
You
who's very
did.
similar to that, who's very, again, well, it's funny because his mom says when he was a kid he was actually calm.
What?
So I don't know who.
Really?
He must have swapped something.
I know.
Because like Nick is very wild
He
and
is.
not like crazy, like foolish.
Right.
But he's just very wild. Like I know, like even like me, dancing in a car, like last night the sprinklers came on at Calvary and he ran through them with me, like that kind of wild.
Right.
I feel like Nick's very similar, so I'm lucky enough that I married someone, so I know when I get older.
And that's
I'll be very
unusual
similar.
because normally, because me and Dad, I think, are very similar.
Yeah.
But normally people don't. They marry kind of the opposite. I shouldn't say normally. I guess people just are pointed out. It's probably totally false. Forgive me. We can
Move on.
I wander. Sorry, guys. So we kind of talked before, and we chatted about just about you had some learning differences growing up, and I know it was a challenge for you. Could you speak on that and just kind of share a little bit about, you know, what those learning differences were and how that affected you when you were younger?
So about, how old was I about? Sorry, no.
It was after kindergarten
Yeah.
when we did the testing.
So we did testing to see if I had dyslexia.
Yes.
Just because every single time I'd read, I'd get headaches, and then I remember just staring at a piece of paper and like things getting jumbled, like looking at letters and literally them actually moving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that you guys went and got me tested, and then
and they discovered that you had Erlin syndrome, which is a depth perception. It's not an eye. It's a, you know, how the brain processes, you know, information. So yeah, and I think you were 5 years old. It was at the same time.
Right.
But what was so interesting about that too was that we had Dad tested also.
Right.
And Dad tested for the exact same things. I was tested too. I didn't test for either one, but I think it was a huge eye opener for us. And I know it's probably hard for you to remember because you were just 5 years old, but for us it was like, oh my goodness gracious, is this why she's so because you're so creative. You're like, have always been just very creative, and you would write stories. And I remember one time you wrote a story about a girl in a jungle, and she lived in a jungle. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
I wrote about Carol Baskin.
Maybe. I don't know. Well, it was a jaguar.
Yes. You remember? Yes, because I remember she had a friend, she had a mom.
Yep.
She had a single mom,
Mm-hmm.
and then she had to sneak the jaguar
Uh-huh.
in. Yes.
Yes.
I do.
And I couldn't read it.
No.
It was like another language, but I kept making you read it because I was like, I can't believe this. And you were reading verbatim the exact same thing over and over and over.
Right.
It was wild.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy because even now, like, I'm still not the best at spelling. But I think even now, like, writing and stuff like that, I've found that, like, because of my spelling, I've limited the way my imagination goes, even with, like, spelling and stuff, is because like even today, I'm writing up an email or like even a text message of an encouraging word, and thankfully we now have Siri that I can just say, hey, spell this, but I didn't want to spell like, I forget what it was, but it was something encouraging, but I deleted it because I was like, I forgot how to spell, I'll just say something else. And it was just something in my brain that I didn't realize it, but I was limiting myself in the way that I was communicating with people, even over a device, because I couldn't spell it correctly. And so I think, but I feel like I've limited myself in that freedom of even not writing as much because of maybe because of that, because people couldn't read it technically. So.
Well, what's so crazy too is I remember when you were younger that you loved to read. Once we discovered what it was, and there was just kind of this, and you loved Junie B. Jones books. And you would read those over, and I wasn't really crazy about them because she's kind of a stinker.
Yeah.
So, but I remember, other moms were like, should you even let her read those books? Or she's a bad girl. And I'm like, you know what? She's able to read them. She thinks they're hilarious. She knows they're not real life. And, and it was one of those things where as a parent, I had to change the way that I thought of things. And, I was a homeschool mom and, I had a very early first and second reader, and then kindergarten came and you weren't reading, and we knew that you wanted to. And then it was probably 4th or 5th grade, we noticed just a huge spike in your learning and even as a teenager. I remember you would be in your room for hours just reading books, and it was really interesting to see your choices of books and encouraging to know that you definitely discovered that you had a love for reading.
Yeah.
So how do you think that just overcoming the stigma of having a learning disability? I hate to call it a disability because I think you just learn differently, and you were able to use totally different parts of your brain that I think you relied on more so.
Right.
And I could be totally wrong and get letters from psychologists that tell me I'm crazy.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, no, and I really do think it came down to the point of because I was homeschooled, and of course I know some people don't have that freedom, but at the same time I remember spelling. You would allow me to dance to when I would spell them out, and it was because I would remember a step with the letter, and you'd let me sing when I would do spelling as well, because it would remind me, I think it was just in my brain, I would remember maybe a cross with an L, something like that, and it's just, I think it was in my brain, I just learned differently, but I think the reason why I love to read and do that, because you pushed me, but you allowed me to do that as well, but you also allowed me to learn differently. You didn't allow me you didn't make me learn the way Sierra learned, or how Savannah learned, or even how Sailor learned. You allowed it to be a way of me learning the way that I learned best, because I think that there was, again, that freedom of going, okay, I don't have to stand still, my hands folded in my lap, and memorize this. It was, I got to dance to it, I got to sing to it, and so I think too that even just with reading, there was that freedom of, I don't have any expectations. You didn't make me at all read it out loud. You allowed me to, but you never were, we're gonna fix this problem. It was very much, go read if you want. I don't think you ever gave me, besides if it came to school, but you never made me read because of my dyslexia. And so I think a lot of people limit themselves with, especially reading. They go, oh, I don't like to read because I'm dyslexic. Right. Whereas in reality I think it's the fear of having to read out loud to and having to impress people that makes people scared. And of course, that's just that was always my fear, was when, at church they had asked me to read a verse out loud. That's when I would hate reading. Right. Or when at school they would make you write something down about the book. It was it no longer, and that's of course with school, but I think the reading out loud was the part. Yeah, at book studies, or not book studies, homeschool group book studies, where they all went in a circle and read out loud. And I think it was when that anxiety came, because what if I do get this word wrong? What if I can't say it correctly? What if I can't? But I think what happened was you installed a courage in us, and even I think with all of us, but especially with me, you installed a courage, because it wasn't about reading out loud. It wasn't even about my dyslexia. It was about how much I cared about what people thought about if I read this wrong, or what people thought. And so in reality I think that's when it really came down to, I'm going to read this to myself first, and I'm going to find kind of that in myself, and that's where you really installed kind of that confidence in me, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny because I remember, and I'm glad you remember those really great things, because on the flip side of it, I remember really struggling, not with you, but with myself, because I thought there was something that I did, or I wasn't schooling you right, or that's why kindergarten, I felt like, you know, that you weren't learning. And then once we had a diagnosis, it was like, okay, the heat came off. And it really, because with the two older girls, I was very, you know, legalistic and rigid when it came to homeschooling. And with you, and I was very, and I hope this isn't offensive to you, but I was thankful. I was very thankful that that was a trial that we had to walk through, because it showed me a character trait that I could develop, or, you know, foster this attitude of things don't have to be exactly how I want them to be for them to be right and good. And when we, you know, when obviously when we came to the other side of that, and, you know, we had the options at 16, you were able to go to a junior college if you wanted to, and you opted out not to, and just to continue to be homeschooled from 10th to 12th grade and get a job and everything. You did a lot of really courageous things, and what I've seen that it's done for you is that it has made you so brave, where you are willing to try new things, and you're okay if you fail. You're like, okay, that didn't work, so I'm going to, I mean, I remember times when you took way too many jobs at one time, and I was like, oh my goodness gracious, she is so brave. You were like 17 or 18 years old, and I remember just being like, I can't believe she's doing, I would have never even taken one of these jobs, and you had like 5 jobs, and you know what, you struggled, and I remember and finally you were like, I need to quit some of these jobs, and it was so neat to see how you were like, it's okay, and you learned through that. You were like, it's all right, I don't have to prove myself to anyone.
right.
So, and I think even just for our listeners out there, you know, if you're gonna walk through a trial, or you're gonna walk through something difficult, if the end of it is, hey, I decided to quit that, and realize that you can learn just as much from stepping back from something than from going through and trucking through and ruining relationships and ruining, you know, what do you call it?
Relationships.
Yeah, relationships,
Yeah.
but, you know, like with a job, you know.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think too, like even for some parents, I think realizing that sometimes your kids aren't made for college.
Yes.
Because I think we put, and again, Mom, you're gonna probably get hate mail over this. But on a serious note, parents get very protective of this, and
Yeah.
I do need to. I think this does need to be brought up. Of some kids are made for school. Let me just say
Right.
this. I know kids that I'm like, my husband, he's a straight A student. Oh, amazing in school.
Right.
But then there's the opposite side where kids like me who learn better with hands-on, who learn better in the who literally learn better going out traveling. And yes, that's like every child's excuse not to go to college, but sometimes that's how they learn better, and that's how their brain works. And so I think even that freedom of knowing that first, that I wasn't limited by my dyslexia, I wasn't limited by any of that, but also knowing that I wasn't even limited with college, because what I think a lot of parents think is my kid, in order to have to get a job, a good job, they have to go to college. And yes, if you want to be a doctor, there is jobs that you do have to go to college. But I think it came to a point though where you knew that my dream job, it really had to be practical things that I had to learn. It did have to be life. And so I think even you allowing the Lord and allowing me to even do all those jobs and allow me to, because I really believe that Dad always says it, those jobs were my schooling.
Yeah.
And so, and I still believe that.
I remember one time Dad and I came home, I think it was a date or something, and Savannah was babysitting you guys, and you were sitting at the table with a lighter and plastic spoons. And I was like, what are you doing? I think you were like 12 or 13. And you were all, oh, I'm making a flower. And you would melt the plastic spoons, and you fashioned it into this beautiful peonies. I mean, it was just gorgeous. And I was like, where did you, I mean, she goes, oh, I just thought about it. And I was like, how do you just come up with stuff like that? I mean, you're an amazing artist. You design jewelry. You are probably one of the most creative people that I know. And I'm not just saying that because you're my daughter, and you're willing to try anything. And once again, you're willing to try something and go, yeah, that didn't turn out how I thought it would. I'm gonna, like, even your earrings.
Yeah.
Your earrings, you started off making these little dots out of clay. And then next thing I know, you got these molds, and now you're mixing and marbling clay, and I'm like, how do you do this? But it just goes to show that you don't give up very easily, and being creative. I always joked with Dad. I'm like, I wonder if this, the learning differently has really given her kind of a third eye. Because you literally, when you were little, you were so compassionate, and I'd never seen, a 7-year-old so compassionate. You would stay after church if someone was sick, or that, you would be the first person to go and hang out with a new kid, and we never, we had worked in children's ministry for years, and we had never encountered a child that was so just stuck on, I don't want people to feel left out, so I don't know, take that for what it's worth, Skylar. It's the last thing I'm saying nice tonight.
I love it.
So, as we talk about just folks that we're speaking to with Run Mama Run, what does it mean to you being 21 years old, being an artist, being compassionate? What could Run Mama Run, what could this podcast or blog or just this community, how could it speak to someone like you?
Well, I think don't put limitations on yourself. I think even like if your dream is to go to college, like don't limit yourself by saying no, I'm a creative. Like I can't do that. Like I think even with traveling and stuff, I think a lot of us are, even myself, like I'm driven by courage, but also by fear. I think there's that opposite side of doing that. But I think that allowing the Lord to use you in whatever season you're in, but let's say that you're going to make an art piece, you're going to make something that I don't know, something beautiful, like allow the Lord to speak through that. I think a lot of times that we feel like limited by the things of this world, and we feel limited by what people say about us. We feel limited by maybe the job that we have. We feel limited by the career that we're going towards, or even college that we want. I think just knowing that we're free in the Lord, but we need to express ourselves through the Lord, and allow the Lord to do it. Because a lot of times we try to express ourselves through ourselves and say, no, this is who I am. I'm just your creative. But in reality is we need to express ourselves through the Lord, because the Lord is just gonna amplify us and make us more beautiful in that way. And so I really just feel like people like me need to know, don't be driven by fear. Don't be scared that the Lord's gonna make you look ugly through this, or that He's gonna bring you through He bring you through the mud, but little do you know that He's gonna make you so beautiful in it, and He's gonna bring you through maybe this fear of going to college, or He's gonna bring you through this fear of not going to college, and so I think that that's just my biggest advice. And at 21, again, literally just literally bring it to the Lord and be creative through the Lord. Because I think another thing is 21-year-olds are very at my age, even me sometimes, we're very stubborn sometimes, but allowing yourself to go through the Lord and going, okay, maybe I should go to college, don't be stubborn. Maybe I shouldn't go to college, don't be stubborn. You know what I mean? And so,
well, and even just the whole inspiration behind Run Mama Run, I'm a mama, and I refer to my kids sometimes as mama. It's not so much that you have to be a mom to be a part of this community. What came to me when I was even just having the thought in my mind, it was laid on my heart that there needs to be a community where people can run together, and it not be this competitive run, but this sisterhood of women running. And it made me think of Hebrews 12 verse 1 and 2, and it says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So the idea that they're all different things that we're going to do when we're running this race. There are different paths we're going to take, career and family, but there's nothing wrong with us wrapping our arms around each other. So often in this world, we just find times to compete against each other, compare each other, and in this community, we really want to encourage each other and push each other. I want to push Skylar to be the best that Skylar can be. I want to push my sisters, figuratively, because I don't technically have any sisters, but push them to greatness and whatever that may be. And obviously the prize is heaven. So I'm so happy that Skylar has agreed to come and do this interview and to just really partner with me in this, because it really shows that it's possible. It's possible to support each other even though we're different ages, we're on different career paths, we do different things in our life. And another huge thing with Run Mama Run is I really want to make a point that what we're doing is we want to just blot out injustices, especially toward women and children and to those that are often overlooked, disabled and elderly, and we want to make sure that we are running well. The things that we are doing and the things that we are saying are good, and not just good as in, better than bad, but good as in moral and kind and loving and encouraging. And so for my final question, I want to know, Skylar, if there was one injustice in the world that you could change, what would it be?
It was so hard because I read that question when you sent it to me, and I was like, oh gosh, I was like, but I was really thinking about it, and I just feel like a lot of times in this world, because I've been thinking of COVID and
Right.
just a little, it's a virus, but it's so little, you know what I mean? But how it's making such a big effect on this world, and for me, I'm just seeing though how that big effect, it also has good effects to it.
Right.
But I think, and it sounds so weird, and I don't know, Lord, just if it's wrong, it's wrong. I would really want to change how people view people, because if perverted men started to see children as beautiful creations of the Lord, then our viewpoints would change. If abusive moms would start seeing that these kids are loved, if prostitutes started even seeing themselves as people who the Lord loves, then I believe that our whole world would change, because I think a lot of times the reason why we have so much injustice in this world is because of how we view people, and we view them as things, we view them as burdens, we view them as, whereas if it changed us, then it might even not change the circumstance, but at least it would cause conviction, at least it would cause, and I even do believe it would cause a change, because if we started to view people the way the Lord viewed them, and not even, if literally an unbeliever could just see someone the way that the Lord sees them, it would change everything. It would change it drastically. And so I think that that's just an injustice, a small injustice that we even do to people. We view them in a way that the Lord doesn't see them as. We view them in this way of this sin that they're carrying. We view them in this way of and how if we just viewed them like the Lord would, it would literally change the whole world.
That's so true. That's so true, Skylar. That's such a good word. Thank you.
Thanks.
I love that, and it's not wrong. I think that the way we view others and is a complete reflection of the way that we view ourselves.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming today, taking time out of your crazy life, girl.
My Chick-fil-A life.
I know.
I don't work at Chick-fil-A. Just to make that very clear. They're gonna be like,
that's okay. They can give you a call and get a little home delivery now, since we can't visit very often.
Right.
Oh goodness, girl. Thank you. I love you, Skylar.
Love you.
Thank you guys for joining us today. Have a good one.